Hey guys, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel, Home to Inspire DIY and Decor. Today I have some simple makeover ideas for some thrifted finds or anything that you may have at home that you are just tired of, that you want to refresh and give it a new look. So for the first projects, it's actually going to be using these transfers by IOD. And this pack right here has a lot of labels like French ephemeral labels and things like that. So I'm going to be using 3 of the labels that came from this pack. And I'm just going to simply use 3 jars or vases. This, I believe, came from Target Dollar Spot probably over a year ago. I've had it in my stash. Didn't quite do anything with it for a little bit. So this time around, I just went ahead and took them out and finally decided to use them by taking these simple and cute rub-on transfers to make them into French style looking vases, just to add a cute little stem, maybe a lavender stem, or maybe even some pieces of greenery. You can even leave this empty. It's perfect just to decorate with as a grouping in a vignette. I think this would be super pretty. But this was a very easy DIY. Literally just take 3 types or styles of transfers that you like. It depends really on what type of style you're after and what look you're trying to achieve. So here, as I've mentioned before, I do really like the French style, French farmhouse, French country, and these labels were perfect to achieve that look. And I just grabbed the ones that would fit into the surface of each of the bottles, and just using the stick that comes with the pack, just burnish it on and then lift up the carrier sheet, and easy as that, you have 3 beautiful vases that are now customized to fit my own aesthetic. This would also be perfect to use as a bud vase for some real flowers or stems. Or let's say you wanted to propagate some plants. This would definitely be perfect for doing that. Moving right along to DIY number 2, I am taking one of these. It's like a jewelry holder, maybe something to hold your keys on as well. I found this at Hobby Lobby a few years back, and I did use it as is, but it is plain. So it's a perfect canvas just to decorate and make it more customized. So I'm going to go ahead and use a combination of IOD, actually redesign transfers, as well as some molds by the redesign brand. So I'm here deciding on which of the molds I think would suit this piece. I wanted to give this some character and some charm by adding some molding to it. So first thing I'm doing is taking some cornstarch and just applying that to the mold that I decided to use. And this will just prevent the clay from sticking and allow it to release a lot more easily. So just go ahead and spread some cornstarch liberally over the mold that you decide to use if you decide to make some moldings. And then I'm going to go ahead and use some DIYS clay. And this one is a little bit stiff. I think I've had it too long. It's been a minute since I've used it. So I did warm it up a bit in my hands, just rolling it about to make the clay stick together, because some parts were just wanting to separate and not want to meld together, if that makes any sense. So I just kept repeating the rolling and kneading and everything just to get the clay to attach a lot more easily. And that way it'd have one continuous piece as opposed to like a piece of clay that's just cracking. So I'm not sure if this clay was just a little too old and maybe it's, you know, it started separating, but I made it work. I went ahead and softened it up enough and made it stick to each other to where I was able to add it to the mold. And I'm using more of a thicker rose looking mold. I wanted to add this to both the top and bottom of that decoration piece that I showed you. And here I'm gonna go ahead and sort of trim off the excess clay that's surrounding the design using my X-Acto knife. This didn't really work out too well. I'd probably use a different tool, but it's what I had on hand at the moment. So in the end, it all worked out, but I did have to just remove a lot of excess clay just so that the design of the rose came through a lot more clean. And like I said, this is going to be added to that jewelry holder piece that I showed in the beginning of this DIY, just to add some character and make it look more decorative. So once I had my mold castings ready to go, I went ahead and added some water to the castings just in areas where I felt like the design was cracking, and water just helps to adhere it, and that way you're able to mold it back into place. So I'm just giving it a test run to see exactly where I wanted to place the castings. But before I move on to that next step, I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same steps as I did to create another casting. Okay, now that the molds have been made, the casting molds have been made, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step of painting this entire piece. I'm using the color Sandstone by Waverly, and I did have to thin it out a bit. It was rather thick. And before doing the painting, I'm going to attach these mold castings using some Aleene's tacky glue and a combination of hot glue. I also painted over the casting molds. I'm not sure if you can tell. Then with the help of my heat gun, I just went ahead and sped up the drying process. Once the paint was dry, I took my sanding sponge and just roughed it up a little bit. I made sure to focus on the edges, any raised parts of this decor piece, and some parts in the middle. I just wanted to have different areas where the paint was chipping off and where the undercolor was exposed. And once I got the desired look I wanted, I moved on to the next step, and that was to add some rub-on transfers. And as I mentioned, I did use the redesign rub-on transfers. This is their more of a French style rub-on transfers. They had plenty to choose from. I just cut out the pieces that I thought would be fitting and that would look nice in this decoration. So after fussing with it for a bit, I decided to go with this floral design. It's super pretty, and it was perfect just to add to that corner right there. And all you need to do is use a rubbing stick. It's like a craft stick that it comes with, but I did end up using a different burnishing tool that came from a different set of transfers. You can use anything that you have on hand and just burnish on your transfers. And then using that carrier sheet, just want to rub on a little bit more over that transfer just to make sure that it has good adhesion. Then I decided on 2 additional transfers. Here is like some French script, and then also that bumblebee right there. And I don't know about you guys, but I do love the combination of the black transfers with this sort of taupey beige colored paint. I think it's just the perfect balance of neutrals. . So this is how it looks once the transfers are added. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step, and that is to go ahead and use some rub and buff in the color Spanish Copper. Now you can use a sponge or some type of brush, but I like to use my fingers just for more control. And I love to just glide this over anything that's raised or has a lot of detail because it instantly transforms the look of it. Now, if you are trying to get into more of the nooks and crannies or the deeper recesses of a design, then you may want to opt to use a brush so that you can get in to those corners a lot easier. I'm already loving the transformation that this creates once I added that rub and buff. It almost gives it like a metal look. And I will use that same copper color over the metal elements on that hook just to make everything cohesive. And for that, I'm using a brush because I was trying to avoid getting this rub and buff over the paint. So I was trying to be a little bit more precise. However, I could have used a smaller brush, but I didn't have one on hand. And before I forget to mention, off camera, I did decide to add some antique gold rub and buff to different areas of the roses where I had already applied the copper color, just for more dimension and a pop of color, that nice gold gilded look. And you will see that in the reveal. I do love how it came out. I hope I've inspired you to take something old or take something that you already have, or you can even find at yard sales or thrift stores, and just transform it and make it into your own. And as always, I do appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I thank you for watching my video. Let's go ahead and take a final look.